Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights here with Rich Klein. Thanks sponsors, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike's Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Upper Deck, Panini, and Topps. So Rich is here. There are 2 shows in Dallas tomorrow as we are taping this. This is not live. So Rich is maybe going to go to one, and I might go to the other. And they're probably similar size. But I've noticed that shows are coming on strong. There's more and more competition. From the top end, you've got competition potentially from Fanatics and their new approach and their Fan Fest in New York that they've announced, but they're not going away from shows. They're trying to figure out how they're going to get at this. Then from the lower end, there's some smaller shows that are coming into this area because of the success. And so Kyle is responding. It's a free world out there. There's nothing stopping Fanatics from having a show in Dallas the week before Kyle's big show. There's nothing stopping other promoters in Dallas. I think Kyle's protecting his turf. Well, anyway, Rich, you hit more shows than I do. Are you seeing it that way? Because it's a great time to be a hobbyist in Dallas.
I also have thought that small shows have been a really underserved market in recent years. I'm not going to start doing any of my small shows again. I don't want to spend the time and energy doing it. I'm going to keep doing the synagogue show, nice, friendly neighborhood show. It's not a Pelican Case show. It's more of a collector dealer show, friendly, a couple people with good cards, but for the most part, just fun people who spend time trading with each other to some extent. They'll buy from the next guy and then the other next guy will buy from them. They're basically trading, even though they keep trading cash. And that's fine. That's what I want in that show. But it's an underserved market. Kyle's doing a great job with the Dallas Card Show. He's already announced his dates for next year.
I will be there at all 6 of them.
But the small show market has been very underserved. The fee table hotel show.
Wait a minute.
Until now.
Yeah.
Now it's getting to be served. Originally, there was a guy and one person started in downtown Plano, but it was really a tough place to park. It wasn't a hotel. It was 5 minutes from my house, but it was downtown Plano, not exactly the most accessible place to get to. Even though the show was very crowded, it was not a great location. He's moved now to Vista Mall. The show in Frisco tomorrow is at the Sandman Hotel, which is a very nice hotel on the border of Plano and Frisco. Kyle's show tomorrow is by DFW Airport, a nice hotel. They may have up to 70 tables at that show. I think you are making the right choice to go to that show.
We live on slightly different parts. So you're very close up there, and I'm actually toward the direction of where that one is. Okay, but dealers can't be both places. So what's the division? Is Kyle setting it up in such a way that he's going to be taking away, or are there just enough dealers that you're going to have 50 or 60 dealers at one and 50 or 60 dealers another? Because I go the quality of the promoter and I go by the quality of the dealers, and then location is a distant third. I will go farther if it's better dealers. And so the tie would go to Kyle if it was a tie, because I'm trusting he's got good relationships with dealers.
To answer your other question, there's a 700 table Dallas Card Show every 2 months. A lot of those dealers are local. I think you can probably come up with 100 tables almost any weekend in Dallas.
I know, but if it's the same guys that are going to be there in mid-January, I don't need to make a special trip. My thought is if it's a more casual show, cheaper tables, maybe they're bringing cheaper stuff, because I'm no longer working the showcases. I'm working the dollar bins. So at a lower price table, they can bring some of that stuff. Is that correct reasoning?
I think that's very good reasoning. I think that's part of what we do at the Adach show is we have lower price tables.
For sure, yeah.
I do want to have 1 or 2 people with good showcase cards for those that come in. And by the way, it's counterintuitive, but they tend to do very well at that show too. Because even though I talk about it one way, they've got good stuff. Way back in my day as a promoter, I had a guy who was like the only new card dealer at my show. And he actually did better at my show than Kyle's show. Counterintuitive, because my show had that quote reputation of being more of the relaxed vintage show. There were enough people coming for new cards. And I realized later, he loved the show because he was doing so well with his new cards and he didn't have a lot of competition. And at Kyle's last show, I did very well.
I want to have fun. I want to look at cards When I'm going through a dollar box, I'm seeing interesting cards that I pull and other interesting cards I think, nope, not for me, might be for Rich. At a dime box, you're seeing almost all cards that, not that they're junk wax, but they're in the dime box for a reason. And unless it's a big mistake, a quarter box even is better than a dime box.
I don't
50 cents.
Yes, but I don't see as much of the overproduced era anymore in the dime boxes, because I think we're finally almost done with those.
I was starting out talking about how being a show promoter, and I've had this on other episodes, the regulation or lack thereof in the industry and the hobby. So the show promoters, it's maybe gentleman's agreement, if anything, that you've got different promoters working in the same area. And you got the specter of Fanatics thinking about it, because the Fanatics people have come to Dallas. They've gone to Burbank. They've gone to Chicago. They've gone to Philly. They've gone to Chantilly. They've gone to all these places. And the rumor is they want to buy all the shows. And I don't think that's a true rumor. The truth is, I think they want to know what's going on in the industry. And the fact that the White Plains show was coinciding with the Fan Fest last August, I'm not willing to say that's a conspiracy, although I will say I think Fanatics has had feelers with all the shows of how open they would be to a working relationship or being purchased. Fanatics is here to stay, and they want to get a piece of every pie. But the best person to run the Dallas show right now, the big show, is Kyle. And if Fanatics owned it, it would be different and not necessarily better, unless they let him run it the way he knows how to run it. If they bring in all these activations and things like that, he's got to get a new location, and it might bring in more money, but it'd be way more complicated and maybe not as much fun for you and me. I want Fanatics to be checking out the shows. And if they do acquire or hire a promoter, although they're going the opposite direction, they've eliminated some positions of hobbyists. I like the unregulated nature, because I think Kyle's best defense is putting on a great show and then doing some of these pop-ups. I'm curious if the pop-up is legit or whether it's just defensive.
I will tell you, the pop-up he did last week with free admission.
Yeah.
By the time I left at 11 o'clock, the crowd was out the door. It was very crowded in the room.
Okay, well, what kind of stuff was in the room?
There was a lot of Pokemon, but there was a lot of cards too. I will also say, when it comes to Kyle, this is not a secret. He has an agreement working with GTSM, who's a major autograph person, and Kyle's helping them with a couple of their out-of-town shows get dealers, and they're bringing in much bigger names to his show. It's bringing in huge crowds to Kyle's show. He's had some of his biggest admissions ever with these autograph guests coming, and he's not the one arranging for the autograph guests to come. The financial agreements on this is none of my business, and I've never asked. It's when for GTSM, who are autograph show people, but not card show people. A couple of the people in their organization are card people, but most of them are autograph people. You bring Kyle in with his influence, you now have card show people helping you on some of these out-of-town shows. And Kyle was getting autograph guests. But the last show was like Bo Jackson and Dennis Rodman. That's not really a bad combo to bring in.
So for this show that's this weekend, what you're calling a pop-up show, is he mainly tapping into his current established dealers, or is this an opportunity for him to audition waitlisted dealers who can't get into the big show yet?
I think it's both. When I went to the show, there were about 4 or 5 people I knew, and they basically rang the wall. They had a bunch of wall tables. They were like, okay,
established.
Established, like the people he calls first to do a show. And then the rest of the room was filled up with people who, we'll call them the waitlist dealer group.
Okay, let's go beyond the waitlist. If Kyle had a show and he had free dealer tables, you just had to have inventory to be able to set up, how many tables could he fill with Dallas dealers? Not Oklahoma City, not Little Rock, not Houston, Dallas dealers. Could he fill 500 tables if the tables were free for Dallas dealers that had enough material to set up at a table?
I was going to say 200.
I'm shocked.
But it could be more. I don't know the number. I don't know where everybody who sets up at the Dallas Card Show is from.
Right.
So I'm just using 200. I could be too low. I could be too high. I don't think I'm too high, but I could be too low.
Wow. Okay. See, that's encouraging to me. As the table price goes down, you pull in a different kind of dealer. Maybe it's a collector dealer, like in the old days, who's got stuff they want to sell and they don't want to pay huge bucks for a booth for the weekend, but for a one day, a pop-up, they're going to test the waters.
I'm a big fan of collector dealers. As I said, that's what the Adat show has a bunch of. And even a couple of the dealers, I consider collector dealers for how they display their cards. And as I said, I try to have a couple of real people too.
Real people. That's a good kind of people to have. I remember you telling me that, Kyle, I don't know if it was a requirement, but a strong suggestion that if you're going to have a booth at my show, you need to have a showcase. You just can't have cards willy-nilly strewn on your table. There needs to be a presentation. Is that true? Would that be true of the pop-ups as well?
That was a requirement for me at Kyle's, what we'll call his bigger show.
Okay.
That was always the requirement. I had to have a showcase. Even the show he had last week, I had to have a showcase. And then when he was in the Hilton Garden in Allen, I did not need it. I could just put my cards out. Those were cheaper tables. He didn't care. But any of his more showcase shows, he did have a requirement that I had a show.
But you know me, the showcase is the stuff I pass over because I know it's going to be more expensive in there.
But that was the one requirement he had for me.
I'm saying, but if this new show is no showcases, that will not upset me. It'll be more room for cards that are more economical.
My friend John, who does the synagogue show, had a table full of dime cards. I didn't go through them as fully as I should have, but if he's doing the show this week, you will have a great time. I will tell you that. There were tables without showcases there, and that's fine. It's not a requirement for his pop-up shows.
One of the big discussions in the hobby, and certainly at Fanatics headquarters, is what's the ideal configuration of a show with the activations, the athletes, the signers, and the dealer booths. And Kyle has a formula that it seems like he's moving a little bit away from the formula toward more autographs, it seemed like this past year. And Fanatics maybe is doubling down on the activations and the fest aspect of it rather than the card show aspect of it. But it's a free world, and we'll see what happens. And what you're saying, these pop-up shows are just a pure card collector event without really any meaningful stuff. Moving toward more autographs.
Right. And again, that's because the agreement he has with GTSM, they're bringing in great guests. And if they're
wait a minute, they're bringing them into the foyer. They're not bringing them into the show necessarily. That's one of the things. Are they really going into the show and buying cards? Or are they going to get their autograph and leaving?
Even if they get their autograph and leaving, they're still getting exposed to card people, because there are card people on the way to the thing. So at least they have to look at cards.
They're looking in the door. If there was a scavenger hunt or a hole punch or something, you go around to every dealer. If somebody bought cards from 10 dealers or more, they ought to get a prize just for showing up and participating and enjoying the hobby. And you'd be surprised.
Here's one about the waiting online to get an autograph guest. Back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I would do some shows for Baseball Hobby News. I went to the promoter and I said, please put me as close to the autograph line as possible. I'm not really selling cards. It's card related. I'm not selling cards. I brought a few Shaskas with me, but my trip's paid for. I don't care. I'm not going to schlep a lot of cards to this show. I had a couple of things and I'm selling great, by the way, while I'm there. Almost everything's selling. I'm talking about Baseball Hobby News. I'm getting a lot of names. I'm doing Landolph's business.
Because they're captive. They're stuck in line in front of your table. It's like having a table near the bathroom.
Or the cafeteria, or the concession stands. Meanwhile, there are other dealers moaning to the promoter because everybody's on the autograph line. And I'm almost saying, why don't you think about getting where the people are going to see you instead of complaining there are no card collectors in the room? I was the only person who thought that way, and I'm doing great. And they go, we got to move you, Rich. Why? Because I can't have anybody with a dealer table that close to the autograph thing. Okay, fine. And then I remember the room was the card tables were basically happy. And I gave the guy a look later. Yeah, you've done a great job really making all these people come to see you. Yeah, they're not seeing us, are they? No. Okay, think about it. The autograph, whether you like it or not, adapt.
Yeah, that's true of the whole hobby, Rich. Thanks for being here. Adapting is necessary. Most organisms that don't adapt die, I think. You have to do some level of adaptation that's healthy. Thanks, Rich.
The man